This is Caravan to Midnight, the John B. Wells program. Here is John B.
It's a beautiful thing to be able to welcome onto Caravan to Midnight for the first time anybody, really, that's interesting, right? And, some favorites as well. But it is a real pleasure to welcome David Shurter to the program. His family was instrumentally involved with the events surrounding a failed savings and loan known as Franklin Credit. And you're going, is this about money? A little bit. But wait. He writes here, his father was a child abductor and is involved with cases such as Johnny Gosch, Jacob Wetterling, and Ricky Chaddick. He's been trying to get this investigated now for 15 plus years. That's David. He was born into the MK Ultra program and was raised to believe that he would grow up to be, wait for it, the Antichrist. Wow. What an intro. David, welcome to the program. That's just wild.
Thank you for having me.
Say, the Antichrist. Well, I mean, if you're gonna grow up and be some figure of note, I guess the Antichrist would be kind of a figure of note.
It is. I never liked it. I never did. In fact, people will balk at the situation. My mom went into labor with me Thanksgiving night, and the group that she was with my father, and the group that they were involved with actually parlayed my birth until December 6, 1966 at 6:03 in the morning, because the numbers were vastly important. And actually further on, because they did that to my mother, when I was born, I was breech. And I guess I had my hands up like this, which, living what I've lived, now I realize if I knew anything as a baby, I didn't want to come out. But I ended up giving my mom a stroke, and she died on the table. They revived her eventually, obviously. Yeah. So the Antichrist thing was something I was born into. My parents were already involved in a cult, and people look at the cult, but the cult goes hand in hand with child trafficking and abductions. It's not just the cult. Everyone they like to compartmentalize it because it's easier that way, but it kind of involved all of this. Mm-hmm. And I have older siblings. I had 3 older siblings. I only have one left. She's the youngest of my older siblings. She's 12 years older than I am. But they were all involved in the cult activity as well, and the child abductions. And my brother grew up to be involved in the Franklin Credit. Rusty Nelson is a photographer who went to jail, who is well known for being involved with Franklin and doing child pornography. But Rusty Nelson said that there was a second photographer that was involved with all of this that was recording snuff films. And that's my brother, Stephen. That's who the second photographer is. And in fact, my family is so ingratiated with this that if you look up Frank Church, who is the senator who brought hearings forth about MK Ultra, when you Google his name on the computer and his picture comes up, my brother took that picture. It was my brother's one claim to fame. And so, jump in anytime because I just ramble. I have so much of this that I could share.
Well, okay. One of the things that I had just delayed until this moment about your bio is that you are an author, and you've written a book, Rabbit Hole, a satanic ritual abuse survivor's story. And maybe I was thinking that they, just so that people can get a real sense of what you've experienced, is to maybe ask you the background of your family prior to your coming into the world.
My father was born and raised in Michigan. My father's family, at the time that my father grew up, basically owned the town of Cassopolis, Michigan. We are the part of the Rathman family. We actually are involved with, my sister got a scholarship to get her master's from Colonial Dames. And Colonial Dames are an elite group of a much larger group called the Daughters of the American Revolution. What makes a Colonial Dame different is that your family had to have been in charge at the 13 colonies, which our family was. And so that's basically my father. My grandmother, Shurter, his mother, awful woman, I grew up thinking that we were Jewish and that my grandmother left the Jewish faith because she wanted to be rich. And in Omaha, Nebraska, the most wealthy circles are Jews. And so she left the Jewish faith, and she was actually, what's notable about my grandmother is that she was the first woman executive at the railroad. And it never happened before, but it was a long story. Anyway, come to find out, my sister and her son did 23andMe, which is a DNA testing. Not only are we not Jewish or anywhere affiliated with the Jewish faith, but many of my grandmother Shurter's relatives are actually convicted Nazi war criminals. And so we were involved in this mess from what I can see from way back. My mom, she was adopted. I believe that she was adopted on the orphan trains that were going on, which was, from what I can see, the first organized child trafficking ring that was going on in America. So this child trafficking thing isn't new either. I mean, we've all heard about the orphan train and all these wonderful stories, but nobody ever asked where the kids actually came from. And from what I can tell, I don't know much about my mom. There's no history on my mom. Because she was adopted, I don't know anything about my mom. But my family were involved with a group of people that were involved with Franklin. They were pretty much the elite. People like Dick Bishop, Alan Baer. I'm just naming people who are dead. I could name lots of people who are still alive. But these were all people who were involved. And they were involved with not only devil worship, which was going on in a park outside Omaha called Hummel Park. It was about 5 miles outside of town. But they were also involved with child trafficking and prostitution in the old market in the 80s. Omaha is actually the precursor to what is commonly referred to as satanic panic. Omaha and the allegations and Franklin all went down in 87. And the powers that be that were hiding this used Omaha. The CIA developed what is known as the False Memory Syndrome Foundation. They're actually the group that coined the phrases satanic panic and false memory. And so these people got together, and then we had this whole, because people all over the country were coming forth and saying that their children were being abused in their daycares. Their children were telling people. Most notable is McMartin. McMartin at the time was a daycare that got busted, that all these satanic things came up. HBO has made a movie out of it. Longest and most costly trial ever in American history, at least at its time, and no convictions. So it was all determined to be a farce. But the tunnels that the children spoke about being abused in and having to perform satanic rituals in underneath the daycare weren't found until after the trial was over. So the longest and most costly trial in American history at its time, and a key fundamental part that these tunnels existed and these children were being raped and forced to kill animals and other kids in these tunnels, that didn't come out until the trial was all over and everybody had gotten off. And McMartin was actually one of 7 daycares just in the area alone. And that issue is not limited to that area. There were issues coming out all over the country. Atlanta, Georgia, Michigan was full of them. Omaha obviously was full of them. Texas was full of them. There was a lot of issues where people were coming forth saying that their kids were being satanically ritually abused. They used McMartin. They made it all go away. The False Memory Syndrome Foundation, which basically was a group of rich white people who had been accused of these very crimes by their children, they're the ones who formed the False Memory Foundation, except for Ralph Underwager, who was also a founder. And he actually went on to a UK magazine called Patica and basically went on and on about how great it was for children to have sex with adults and how society just needed to get over itself. Now, satanic panic is not, if you research it, it'll make you believe that it only happened in the United States and that it was a social hysteria, a mass hysteria. Well, what's interesting about this situation is that it wasn't just in the United States. It wasn't just McMartin. It wasn't just the United States. This was actually a global issue in the 80s. The UK had the same issues come out, and so did Australia. Now, where we stand, something like 30 years later, we now know that the UK intentionally covered up their allegations. So if these allegations were so fake and all of that, why did they spend the time and the money and the effort to make them all go away? And also, at the same time we had the False Memory Foundation and Ralph Underwager going on to the UK magazine and saying how great it was for kids to have sex, there were people in the UK government who were advocating the same thing, wanting to have the age limit, the age of consent lowered to 10. And so you had all of these allegations. And now you look at Australia. A good person to look at in Australia is a person by the name of Fiona Barnett. She is an MK Ultra survivor. Now, funny enough, she actually is the female side of what I experienced here. I went through satanic ritual abuse and was convinced I was going to be the Antichrist. Fiona Barnett is in Australia, and she went through the same kinds of abuse, but she was expected to be the Grand Dame. And so there was a female component to this whole satanic stuff. But now they're having issues in Australia because she's made it a big issue. They're having a royal commission, which basically doesn't do anything. They talk a lot, they look like they're doing something, and nothing ever gets done. And all of the survivors that have come forward, they all get either put in jail or terrorized so that they be quiet. That's what's happening down there again. So we're at a period where we can look back at it and see that this whole child trafficking and rape and all of that is not just an American thing. It's actually global. It was in all the countries. And they were all of us had the same issues at the exact same time. And all of them were covered up. And now we're getting to a point where history always repeats itself. And so now we're getting to a period where it's starting to open up again and people are starting to re-examine what's going on, since we all know that there's a huge child trafficking problem.
Man. And simultaneously there seems to be a, I don't know, you really can't tell, because it's almost like the way the same joke will, or catchphrase, or some kind of a colloquial expression will suddenly, it's from L.A. to New York and all points in between. And in the same way, there's all this reporting on Oh, after school Satan clubs and...
all of that is fake.
Yeah.
I want to let everyone know. All of that is fake. I called the schools that the Satanic Temple had listed, and those schools who did know what I was talking about, which were the minority, by the way, the ones who did know what I was talking about said no. And if you look at the website of this ABC affiliate in Miami that was supposed to have picked up this story, their website was designed in 2016. This is all being heralded by this Lucian Greaves, founder of Satanic Temple. His real name is Doug Masico. He goes by Doug Mesner. He has a million names. I've had to deal with him and battle with him for years now. And I believe that this is all being done for a reason, because they are trying to set up an excuse, and they are trying to reestablish this whole satanic panic excuse, because the powers that be know that this whole pedophile issue is becoming a huge issue, and it's way more pervasive than most Americans are even aware of. They all know. I mean, the court has already lifted this whole agreement that this billionaire pedophile Jeffrey Epstein made with these courts to keep everything quiet. That's all been undone. Federal judges has come forward and redid that whole thing. So now we can look at it. And what we know for a fact is that the two people who were on Jeffrey Epstein's plane, private plane, to go to this pedophile island the most, and they called this plane the Lolita Express. The two people that have been on it the most, Donald Trump and Bill Clinton. So both people we have running for presidential office now are completely connected to pedophilia and child trafficking, because it's all connected to this Jeffrey Epstein case. And so now it's starting to come out, and all of this is starting to come forward. And so what the powers that be, I think, in my estimation, obviously there's no way to know for certain, but what I know about the situation is they're using Doug Mesner and all of this satanic stuff in meetings, prayers before city councils, and now they're saying that they're in schools and all of that, and it's all meant to make it seem like there's a panic. So when the child trafficking thing starts to come out, they can say, oh no, we had this in the 80s, and it's just another satanic panic. But it was never a satanic panic then, and it's not a satanic panic now. I mean, and let me point out that this ranch that Scalia was murdered at, that has direct ties to the Bohemian Grove, those two places, what they have in common with Jeffrey Epstein's island, and I'm sure there's more that we just don't know about, but what the most commonalities between these three, they're all for the rich, they're all off limits to every single person, and they're all in the middle of nowhere. And so you have these elites who are engaging in all of this pedophilia, and nobody knows about it because nobody gets to see it. And so now that we're starting to get more focus on this, now they think they can use Doug Mesner and the Satanic Temple thing, which is, again, just like the False Memory Foundation. It's CIA-based. Doug Mesner's best friend, Shane Bugbee, who was the one who helped him found the Satanic Temple, has come forward and said Doug is working with the CIA. So all of this is government, and it's all to try and curb everything. And this whole problem, I mean, it's even vaster than what you're looking at, because this whole gay rights and transgender bathroom thing that's being run by, that we're seeing right now, that's all being done it's not being done by gay people, and it's not really being done by transgender people. It's being done by this pedophile group. That's why they're teaching kindergartners all about sex, and they're teaching fourth graders all about anal intercourse. And they have you focused on this satanic stuff. Oh man, this satanic stuff is so horrible. How could we possibly do that? But they're normalizing extreme sexual activities to all of your children right now. And so there's way more of a problem in my mind with that than there is this whole satanic thing. But our government has a tendency to use smoke and mirrors and modes of distraction. The minute they have you looking over here, you need to figure out where it is they don't want you to look, because they're refocusing us. And so this whole satanic thing that's in schools, it's not. But this pedophile agenda that I talk about, have no doubt that this pedophile agenda is Luciferian based. It's based with a bunch of devil worshippers, because their focus is to make everybody turn from heaven. And that's their goal. Look around at the world around us. I think they've done a really stellar job. It's not hard to see. And where we're at as a population was done on purpose to us. We didn't get here by accident. The economies aren't collapsing by accident. I just wrote it on Facebook. Notice, I was too young when Charlie Manson came out in this whole helter-skelter and this whole Sharon Tate situation. I was too young. I was dealing with my own chaos. So I never really focused on it when it was happening at the time. But as an adult later on, I went and listened to what Charlie Manson had to say, and the worldview that he had, and what he was trying to achieve with everything that he was doing. And I will tell you that his worldview was the same worldview that I was trained in my MK Ultra stuff. And not only that, but if you look at Charlie Manson, who's been languishing in jail for I don't know how many decades, look at what he wanted to achieve, and look at the world where we are right now. This whole race thing, everyone's attacking everyone over color, all of that. It's all exactly what Charlie Manson wanted to do. But obviously Charlie Manson's not behind it. And it's because Charlie Manson, it wasn't an original idea on Charlie Manson's part. In fact, I actually know another MK Ultra survivor who was in the same group as Charlie Manson, Jim Jones, and Billy Graham. And they're all notorious in their own way. And if you look at Fiona Barnett and what she has to say, she calls out Billy Graham as one of her main abusers, and Richard Nixon. She was at the Bohemian Grove, just like I was at the Bohemian Grove. You have all these people who do all this stuff at the cremation of care. That whole ceremony where they burn an effigy of a child. Yeah, that's bad, but that's not when all the stuff goes on. It's the rest of the year that nobody's focusing on it. Nobody can get to it. If you get past the first gate and you get up to the second gate and you're not meant to be there, they'll shoot you dead. And so there's no way to get into it. And so it's all happening off peak. It's not happening during this cremation of care. And so jump in anytime, because I'm my mother's son. I can go on for hours.
No, it's okay, man. It's all about you. It's not about me. Whatever you want to say, this is the way to do it. Let me ask you something. I mean, this is probably a little simplistic at this point. Maybe the answer to this question is obvious to everybody, but what's the big focus on pedophilia? I mean, what is it? It's
the whole pedophilia thing is, in a lot of ways, what I know in my experience is that it's Luciferian based. Because Luciferians know the truth of the world and how it works better than any religion I've ever encountered. They were in charge from the very beginning. I mean, if you read the Bible, the fallen got control of mankind the minute we stepped out of the garden. So everything we know is designed to turn us away from heaven. And it is well known in the Luciferian circles that Jews are not God's favorite. Christians are not God's favorite. Muslims are not God's favorite. Buddhists are not God's favorite. God's favorite and God's sole favorite are children. And so there's a real focus on children because it's an affront to God. And that's a lot of what drives and controls these people, is that they really want separation from God. They really believe in a war with heaven. As crazy as people might think that it sounds, the whole reason CERN was built is because they believed they could break into heaven and take it over with their little war machine. Because Luciferians, when I was a child, believed that we are at the gates of heaven. It all has to deal with this astrological thing that some people have a really rough time with. There's an actual system out there that has 13 symbols instead of 12. And they add a symbol called Ephesians, which is actually the 10th symbol in a series of 13. Ephesians, actually, the legend is that he was a guy, he was taught healing by the centaur. He was able to bring people back from life. And God didn't like that, so he struck him down with the lightning bolt. But heaven had a problem with it because the man was such a good man. So God raised him up and put him in the stars, and his name is Ephesians. And you can also Google it. Ephesians is hard to spell, but just Google the serpent bearer, because he has a snake around his neck, and that snake represents eternal life. And Luciferians believe that astrologically we are at the gates of heaven, because the gates of heaven lay at where the heart of Ephesians is, where his heart is. That's where the gates of heaven are. And astrologically speaking, that's where we are right now. Astrologically, we're in the middle of the Milky Way. And from what I understand from the scientific journals that I've read, this area has a magnetic field, the likes of which is nowhere else. And so a lot of what we are going through on this planet could very well be a direct source of this magnetic force that's in the middle of the Milky Way, because all the planets move and shift and all of that, and they travel around basically in circles, and we're just at a time where the circle is. But to let people know, with Luciferians, I was told that the camps that they have set up with all of these coffins and all of these guillotines.
Oh,
they bought 40,000 guillotines.
Is that true, David?
Oh, yeah. I know that I've not seen pictures of the guillotines, but I have seen all kinds of evidence on the coffins.
Okay. Sorry to interrupt.
We all know that camps are being set up. And as a kid, I was told that this was going to happen, because there is from what I understand, what they wanted to do was they were going to kill a lot of the people. And then they had another group that they were going to train or mind control or do anything to make them into slaves and get them going. And then there was another group that was just too weak. They'd just do whatever they wanted, whatever they were told. And so it's this depopulation thing. People say, oh, that's a, conspiracy theory. Well, look at what's going on. There's all these vaccines and all of that. And let me assure people, mankind is on the verge of a huge, huge die-off. And I say that because we are in a 6th level extinction event right now. Things are dying on the planet faster than they did with the dinosaurs. That's how fast it's going. And so it is logically only a matter of time before that comes to mankind's front door. No man is an island, and mankind doesn't make up the planet Earth, And so all of this stuff is what people have a hard time understanding is that it has always been a spiritual process. We're here, it seems physical, money, things, tangible stuff, but it has always been what we were always told it was, a spiritual process and a spiritual quest. And I personally believe, knowing what I know, that we are in the process of a spiritual evolution, the likes of which we've never seen before. And so things are getting ready to change at an incredible amount. And so, again, jump in. I can go all over the place. So
let me ask you this. Is it all gloom? I mean, just a couple of guys talking like we've known each other for a long time. And of course, that's not true, but I'm comfortable talking to you and I hope you're comfortable talking to me. So let me put it to you this way. Is it all gloom and doom, or is there any upside to any of this?
Oh, man,
it would suit me just
such an upside you have no idea.
I mean, if the Lord came back, say, I don't know, in 15 minutes, that'd be okay with me. It really would.
That's the conception that people have. This time around, God's not coming here. Jesus Christ is not breaking the law of physics, breaking through whatever dimension, and flying in with an army. That's not how it's going to happen. What I believe and what I know, and I mean, we don't have time at all to go into my spiritual stuff that I've had, but being raised to believe that I was the Antichrist and not wanting to be the Antichrist,
right,
caused a lot of conflict with me and heaven for a lot of years because I didn't want the job. And so I fought it. And so I've gone through this. I will tell you spiritually, what you need to do right now, the only focus really anyone needs to do is to follow the 12 commandments that have been laid before us. The 10 that God gave us and the 2 that Jesus Christ gave us, which should be at the top of your list. Those are love God, love everyone else as you would love God. And right now, what we need to do is, it's not trite and it's not metaphorical anymore. Your salvation, every single one of you, your salvation is dependent upon how much love you have in your heart when everything goes down. And everything is already going down. And so I tell people the only thing you can do is focus on the 12 commandments. I believe we are in the birth pains of an experience and an of existence, the likes of which none of you can even conceptualize, even with your absolute most wonderful, fondest daydreams. Because what I believe is that God is calling all of us, and some of us are going to end up in a new earth. I know there's a new earth. Everything that's dying here is waking up there. It's a virtual paradise. And so, and the best thing about next time around getting there is that there's no veil. There's no separation from heaven. Heaven gets to interact with man at will because there'll be no more demons, no more fallen, because the fallen have all been already embraced back into heaven. Heaven is complete again. You know, the fallen have returned, and now we are headed, the majority of us are headed for a new earth. Because it's my contention that the majority of mankind is, every one of us is innately loving, caring individuals. We're just scared shitless of each other and life. But that's been done to us. And so I think that a lot of people will be able to get through. And it doesn't make any difference what dogma you tell yourself. The only thing you need to concern yourself with is making sure that the love that you have in your heart and the love that others have in their heart for you is paramount and vital to everything you're doing right now. because it's key. Now, I will tell you, there is a darkness heading here. It's already here, actually. It's starting to claim all of the people that were involved with all of this devil worship. I mean, it's not a coincidence that every single one of them are getting sick. You know, Hillary Clinton can't even walk upstairs. Bill Clinton looks like he's death warmed over. Trump doesn't look good at all. Epstein, all of their lives are crumbling because the very thing that protected them and supported them is now gone. And so they're all on their own. And so, yes, we're at the end, and all of this seems awful, but have faith, because heaven is amazing, and it loves every single one of us, even the bad guys. But they're getting claimed by a darkness that they've already opened the door to with their little CERN toy. Even though it hasn't come and taken over yet, it doesn't mean that they haven't opened the door already. And so it's just, we've all been told that the end was coming. If you ask the majority of people, they'll tell you, oh yeah, the end is coming. The end is coming. And it's something that used to be whispered about, and now people just openly talk about it. I mean, they just go on and on and on about it. The end is not coming. We are well beyond the dawn of that new beginning. It's here. It's already happening. Everywhere we see, it's happening. And the only way to escape the darkness that is coming is to make sure that you have as much love in your heart as you possibly can. Because there is an energy vibration that is caused only when you have love in your heart. And without that vibration, you're going to be claimed by the darkness that's coming. And there's a whole long story for what the darkness is and all of that has everything to do with the fact that, you know, what they taught me as far as the MK Ultra, and it all being about energy and all about, you know, that's what Luciferians believe. It's all about energy, and we've been told it's this New Age thing. But yes and no. The New Age thing is kind of a BS attempt to keep people away from the truth. But really, it is all about energy. And right now, the only thing any of us need to be concerned about is that you have the energy of love flowing through your heart and into your life. And if we all did this, we would change the world. But nobody believes in it because we've been told, we've been mind controlled as a population. You know, when you look into the future, what do you think of? I bet it's a Terminator type scenario or something, a Mad Max scenario. You know, nobody believes in the future. That's half of the problem that we have with the kids nowadays. They've been raised with no belief in any future whatsoever. What future do they have? Everything's dead. You know, they're never going to get what their parents had. They're going to be kept in poverty all of their lives. Why would they care? Sorry, I'll get off my soapbox.
No, it's okay. Now, it is written, nobody comes to the Father except through the Son. Yes or no in David's world?
Yes. The things about the Bible, because it was influenced by the fallen, is some truth mixed with a lot of lies. And it was meant to divide mankind and get them divisive with each other. Look at religion. Every single religion, that's all it's done. In the Bible, I tell people that there's only two things in the Bible that you need to concern yourself with. The only two things are the 10 Commandments given to us by God and Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, the teachings of Jesus Christ. If you need to suspend this whole Jesus Christ is the Son of Man, and that is what allows you to read it because you think, oh, that's a fairy tale, that's fine. Suspend it. Just read what the man taught because it's flawless. It is flawless. It works every time in every way. And so therefore, obviously, it's the truth. You know, working with love and compassion not only changes the world around you, but it changes each of us within ourselves. That's why it's so important. And so, Jesus Christ, do I believe that he died on the cross and saved me from my sins? Well, I think he probably opened the door, but I don't feel like I've ever been saved from my sins. Because when I screw up, it always comes back to bite me in the behind. So how exactly did I get saved from them? But I wouldn't have it any other way, because it's through my mistakes that I learn. But Jesus Christ, one of the fundamental teachings of Jesus Christ that I always adhere to is that it doesn't make any... Your failures do not define you as a person. How you face them and rise above them is actually the true test of your character. And so heaven knows that we're going to sin. But if you're aware of it and you're aware of what's going on in the world and you're aware of yourself, because let's be real, primary to Jesus Christ's teaching is know yourself. And the reason why is because if you don't know yourself and you don't know how you think and you don't know how you feel and you aren't aware of actually what you're doing or why you're doing it, it makes you susceptible to be controlled and led down wrong pathways because you have no idea. And what they say, 98% of what we do isn't even conscious. I mean, it's an amazing figure that you do things without even thinking about them on a daily basis. And so I would say that the teachings of Jesus Christ, I'm not a big Bible person. There's a lot of stuff in there that I think is complete and utter BS. I do. I think it's all BS. But these two things are fundamental, and I, without a doubt, believe them. But again, 10 Commandments and Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And only the 10 Commandments. Nothing else. The Exodus, all of that, it's if you need to believe in it, to actually believe in it, but what's required, the 10 Commandments and the 2 commandments that Jesus Christ gave us and the teachings of Jesus Christ, in my opinion, are kind of like a no-brainer. And so if you're adhering to those lessons and you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, and you're still taking your Bible and beating people over the head with it, then you obviously didn't get it and you're not doing it right. Because what needs to happen is that people need to lead by example. And that does not mean some mother who has 12 kids with 12 different fathers walking through a Walmart, holding up a Bible and telling everybody how transsexuals and gay people are going to go to hell. The only thing any of you need to worry about is if each one of you are going to go to hell. Because when it comes down to it, in the end, it's not a point of comparison. You aren't going to get off because of what Johnny down the street did or Susie next door did. It's going to be all about you. And if you don't have the love in your heart that we're all meant to have, you're going to face some shit, just flat out. And if you don't, you can complain about it all you want, but you might as well complain about having to breathe oxygen.
Right. All right. What's the chief difference between Satanism and Luciferianism?
Okay. Satanism, this is the best way. This is how I usually talk about it. Satanism, perfect example, Anton LaVey. Anton LaVey was a Satanist in the 60s. He was the one who gave us the Satanic Church. He was the one who helped orchestrate the Satanic Bible or whatever it was that he wrote. And so Anton LaVey was a Satanist. Satanists were designed to actually ridicule and mock the Catholic or the Christian faith, and primarily the Catholic Church. I mean, but it was all Christian faith. So Satanists basically, from what I can tell, I watched the video where they unveiled that stupid statue in Detroit. And the people who actually identified with Satanism and weren't just there because they were interested just to see what it was all about, but the actual ones who identified with it, they all seemed like they were pretty much misfits of society. You know, the reason why they stand against society and the church and heaven and all of that is because they've never fit in. And so it just gives them a place to fit in. Now, the difference between a Satanist and a Luciferian is the difference between Anton LaVey and Michael Aquino. Colonel Michael Aquino, as he's commonly known, because he is the head of our psych ops department in our military, and he is, or was, a colonel. I've heard all the way up to the point where he's gone all the way to the top, but who knows what the truth is. But Michael Aquino studied and helped set up the Satanic Church with Anton LaVey. But in 1972, Michael Aquino broke away from Anton LaVey and set up the Temple of Set. The difference between Anton LaVey and Michael Aquino is that where LaVey is a Satanist, Aquino is a Luciferian. There's key differences. Luciferians believe in the Antichrist. They believe in a war with heaven. I guess you could look at Luciferians as the fanatical side of Satanists, because they believe in the war with heaven. Satanists, all Satanists do not rape children. All Satanists do not do satanic rituals. All Satanists do not do horrible things in order to thumb their nose at God any chance they get. No, they don't. But every Luciferian does. Bohemian Grove, Luciferian. The ranch that Scalia was murdered at, Luciferian. All of this stuff is Luciferian. There's a big difference. They worship the devil, and they've been working to make Earth one that's desirable for a demonic takeover. Again, when you look at the world and you look at what's going on in the world, this hasn't been done on accident. It's been done systematically. That's why when they talk about a new world order, that new world order has already been here for a long time. It's crumbling now. But they've always had control. I mean, the thing is that if you read Rabbit Hole, and for those of you, my publisher hates this. Rabbit Hole is great. It is. And it won me, I got nominated for Book of the Year with a very prestigious indie award place. And so I didn't win, but I got nominated for my first book. I was pretty happy with it, and I still got the little sticker. And it's a great book, don't get me wrong. But if you're going to read and you actually really want to know everything that was going on and you want to hear the whole details of everything in my life, I suggest that you go to my website, davidshurter.com. And in the pages above, there is a link that says extended version of Rabbit Hole, Confessions of an Antichrist. And the difference between these two is that with everything they cut and everything they added, and they added a lot because they put news sources and stuff that validated what I was saying. So in Rabbit Hole, with everything they cut and everything they added, it's 62,000 words. The actual manuscript that I wrote is 130,000 words. And when I wrote Confessions of an Antichrist, I didn't write it with any intentions of publishing it. It was just that I, like a lot of survivors out there, have spent a lot of time telling myself that I was crazy, and the things that I believed and the things that I knew to be true couldn't possibly happen and couldn't possibly be true. So I sat down and spent 3 months writing Confessions of an Antichrist, which is basically my entire experience, my life, and what I know, all down on black and white. So I could see it in black and white, because then I figured I could ascertain whether or not I was crazy. And what I realized is that with everything that I knew and everything that I'd put together with all the facts, not only was what I believed possible, but probable. And that's what I find with a lot of stuff. So that it's kind of a divergence from the whole Luciferian satanic thing. But I think we get caught up on it. And really, when it comes down to it, yes, it's Luciferian, but really what you need to focus on, the world needs to focus on, it's funded by the trafficking of children. They're abducting kids. Missing and exploited children say that one child every 27 seconds is disappearing in America alone. Our Child Protective Services has admitted that they have lost tens of thousands of children. Just evaporated. They have no idea where they are. We have this huge child trafficking thing going on. Jeffrey Epstein, Donald Trump. It's this agenda and this that's being going on is the reason why people like this Stanford swimmer who drugged a girl, raped a girl, stuck stuff up her privates, took pictures of it and sent it to her friends, and he got 6 months and is getting out for best behavior, for good behavior. So there's a reason. These are all connected. You know, we're all watching this pedophile and this rape culture being promoted. And it's not just women. If you research into colleges, men are getting raped at a higher percentage sometimes than women are. And so we are, you know, and then Americans have the audacity to talk about Muslims and how, oh, they rape. Well, you know, Bill Cosby, got accused by 40 separate women, completely not connected to each other, and he's still out of jail, and everyone's asking what they did to deserve it. And so, again, sorry, I'll get off my soapbox.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I get it. I really do.
But before I forget, I do want to say, I do want to make a plug. There is a conference going on in Seattle. It is called the Seattle Trauma and Dissociation Conference. It's going on October 6th, 6th through the 9th, I believe it's the weekend. It starts the 6th of October, which is a Friday, and then goes to Sunday. Information about this conference and who is talking and amazing speakers. You're going to have a hard time choosing who to listen to. But information can be found at igdid.org. And how to sign up for the conference. And this conference is for all trauma. Basically, the goal for this year is trauma-informed perspectives. And so basically, it's a conference that allows you to understand what trauma is, how it affects the brain, how it generally affects personality, even though we're all different, and so we're all going to have different variations. And what's key about this is that it also gives you ideas and solutions on how to counteract the trauma and to basically take back your life from trauma. People listen to the things that I listen to my story, and I always tell them, because the biggest thing that I get concerned about is that people listen to what I went through as a kid and listen to my past, and they say, oh, well, my trauma is nothing like that. But again, it's not a point of comparison. Your trauma is your trauma, and no one else's trauma negates or amplifies your trauma, because your trauma is your trauma. And so IGDID, which stands for Ivory Garden, Pat Goodwin is the one who actually puts the conference on. I can attest she does all the work. I mean, I'm around her and I don't even help her. So she does all the work. It's an amazing conference for anyone out there for trauma. Veterans, if you have PTSD, this conference is for you. Nurses, clinicians, teachers, if you want to understand trauma and how to identify trauma, this is the conference for you. And it's dealing with sexual addictions. There's going to be a thing about self-injury, and it's going to be a question and answer. It's not going to be a thing, so you'll be able to ask any questions about self-injury. And a lot of us self-injure, and you don't even have to cut yourself or burn yourself for self-injury. Some of us work too much. Some of us eat too much. Anything that actually hurts you is self-injury. And so this conference will give you the chance to be able to just get some ideas. It's at a great venue. It's at the Radisson. It's, from what I understand, the conference is taking over the entire hotel this year. And so everyone who will be there most likely will be part of the conference. And so you can just get a lot of valuable information, meet people, talk with people about trauma, and really identify that one of the key speakers is Colin Ross. The backlash that I call them is going against Colin Ross, saying that he's cult and that he uses hand signals. And first of all, that's completely ludicrous. But on a personal note, and this doesn't have anything to do with Ivory Garden, but has everything to do with me and my opinion. If you are afraid when you go out in public that someone is going to say something to you or do some sort of hand gesture or God only knows what else, if you are afraid that that is suddenly going to turn you into a mind-controlled zombie and they are going to have complete control over you, and that this is going, and you're afraid of that, my suggestion to you, well, first of all, my suggestion is seek therapy, professional help immediately. But if you're not willing to do that, then stay in your bedroom closet hugging your teddy bear. Don't come to this conference. Not that there's anything around, but it's not even this conference. It's just out in the world. Because I am a survivor, and I hear a lot of things that are going on about survivors. And this is what I know about survivors, just as a whole. As children, you endured some of the most horrific, unspeakable abuses known to man. You all suffered horribly and just incredibly. However, you ended up all making it out. You're all still breathing. The ones that are breathing, obviously the ones that aren't breathing aren't going to hear this, but you are all still breathing, and you are some of the most remarkable people I've ever known. You are intelligent. You are adaptable. You are everything they trained us to be. And the issue that I have is that you are feeding into the same propaganda that everyone else is, in that you're broken, or there's something wrong with you, or you're just a misfit. And I can tell you that all of that is a struggle. It's an ebb and tide. It happens. But you guys survived the most amazing and horrific things as children. Why do you think that the mere memory of experiencing the trauma is going to destroy you? Why, as far as what I know about MK Ultra, is that for the most part, for most of us, they only pick the best and the brightest. So why would you convince yourself that you are so pliable that someone could do anything to you to get you to go against yourself or to affect you in a way that you couldn't control? You guys actually made it out of the cult and made a choice and got out. Now, granted, they attack us. The cult is like the mafia. Once you're in, you're never out. It doesn't work that way. But there are so many of us, and I get frustrated with survivors, because if you go out in public, you hear people who will tell you about satanic panic and false memories, and they don't know where it came from, but they can give those ideas. The issue that I have is that in America alone, there's 48 million of us. So why do they have more of a voice when there's so many of us and we're the best and the brightest? I mean, they found us because of all this testing in schools. That's how they figured us out, And so, and I know that to people who have not been involved with this, it'll sound like a conspiracy theory and it'll sound kind of crazy, but there's a lot of people out there who know exactly what I'm talking about. And from personal experience. And you are the most remarkable people I've ever known. It's just that you need to all stop telling yourselves that you're unworthy and less than what you are, and take responsibility for the fact that they chose you for a reason. And you proven to them that they were right. You're strong and adaptable and have an endurance the likes of which most people don't have. Again, I'm on my soapbox, but you're dealing with me after a week of having to deal with a lot of soul searching on all of this. So
what do you mean? What do you mean by that, soul searching?
You know, I got frustrated because I'm involved with Jacob Wetterling. Jacob Wetterling was a boy who was abducted in '89. I know my dad did it. Years ago, I called the Jacob Wetterling Foundation and told them about my dad. In the conversation, told them, don't tell me, let me guess. The guy that abducted Jacob Wetterling was driving a big blue utility truck. The woman got really quiet on the phone and then told me I was right, and then asked me how I could know that, because that was never released to the general public. And so, of course, I told her I know what my dad was involved with. So just recently, and I have a lot of it written about it on my blog, I had someone had me contact a guy named Aaron Larson. When Jacob Wetterling was abducted, he wasn't alone when the abductor approached him. He was with his older brother and his best friend. His best friend's name was Aaron Larson. And so Aaron Larson has these videos out there trying to get justice for Jacob Wetterling. So I had someone tell me about him and then suggest I get a hold of him. So I did, and I sent a little PM on Facebook. I just sent them like 4 short PMs within a month, or in a month's time. First one was who I was, who my dad was, what my dad was involved with, and I sent a picture of my dad. If you compare the abductor pics to my dad's picture, they're identical, even to where and how he parted his hair. And so I didn't hear anything. And a month later, a friend of mine sent me a video of Aaron Larson that was just brand new, newly made. And so I watched this video, very short video, but the abductor pics are completely wrong. He's running with completely wrong abductor pics. They've changed them. Not only that, but if you Google Jacob Wetterling and read the reports on Jacob Wetterling now, almost every single one of them say he was a masked abductor. How could he be a masked abductor when we have these detailed abductor pics that were done years ago, before the internet? And so I just realized that this was all a game, that this whole pedophile, they do not want my father or my family investigated. They don't, because they know what my parents were involved with. And if it comes out that I can prove that my dad was a child abductor and involved in all of these cases, everything that I've said about Omaha gets validated too. And if everything gets validated in Omaha, this whole satanic panic thing and this whole thing where everyone has these misconceptions of it was therapists, let me explain to you their version of satanic panic. A book, Michelle Remembers, convinced every therapist in the world to conspire together to convince every single one of their clients that either they or their children had been satanically, ritually abused. And so we have all of this going on. Now, mind you, there are 2 documentaries out there. Conspiracy of Silence. If you want to know anything about Omaha, Nebraska, of what was going on at the time, that's a good place to start. Done by a British documentarist, came in, interviewed Omaha, and did Conspiracy of Silence. It was supposed to air on the Discovery Station, but the day that it was supposed to air, the Republican Party paid $500,000 to have it yanked, and so it never aired. But you can find it on YouTube. Now, at the same time that things are going on in Omaha, then you have a documentary out there called Boys for Sale. Boys for Sale involves a man by the name of Dr. Tom Philpott. He shows how this whole prostitution and sex trading of boys that was happening in Omaha was occurring at the exact same time, in the exact same velocity, in the exact same ways in Houston, Texas. Now, Omaha and Conspiracy of Silence will say that it was directly connected to the first Bush White House. Well, who owned Texas at the time? The first Bush. And so you have two places that we have documented proof that child prostitution and trafficking is going on. But they want you to overlook that and say that it was therapists, and then the therapists went in and fed the law enforcement who did all of this overzealous questioning of these children who were all ascertained to be liars. So all the abused children who came forward during the Satanic Panic, like the kids of McMartin, who spoke about being abused and having to kill animals and other children and being raped in tunnels underneath the daycare, they were liars, even though after the court, it was discovered that the tunnels, in fact, existed. So how did those tunnels stay quiet during the longest and most costly court proceeding in America and weren't come out till afterwards? But that's what Satanic Panic. Now, False Memory Syndrome Foundation will tell you it's all Satanic Panic and it's all false memories. And it was a mass hysteria. And they will talk about the Salem witch trial. And they will talk about when War of the Worlds was played on the radio and people freaked out about it. Those things happened. Yes, they did. The key difference between what they point out and what actually happened in the 80s, those are all isolated events. The radio station only got the group of people, and it was a very quick thing. That was a very quick thing. It was one night. Salem witch trials only happened in Salem, Massachusetts. Only happened one area. What happened in the 80s happened globally. Globally, without the use of the internet. So, never mind why all of these therapists decided to create this hysteria and this panic that they supposedly did. But considering that it happened in the United States, UK, and Australia, and that's only 3, there's a lot more, all at the same time in the 80s. There's no internet, so the group of people in America get together, and maybe that's understandable, but how do they get everyone in the UK and Australia involved doing the same thing to create this hysteria? Even though no one's explained why all of the therapists wanted to create a hysteria concerning the worshiping the devil and raping and killing a bunch of kids. And not to mention that we have Jimmy Savile in the UK and George Pell, who is head of he's third in charge of the Vatican, who just went on to worldwide television for the Royal Commission in Australia. And his whole reply was basically, yeah, I knew children were getting raped. Wasn't a big deal to me. What was it supposed to mean? I didn't do anything about it. And that's exactly what he said within 3 days. Kid you not. And people are just like, oh, okay, well, he knew about it but didn't go anything. Well, that's too bad. You know, and how many children's lives were destroyed? And so, sorry, you get me on my rants.
No, it's okay. It's good stuff. I just wonder what is... So MK Ultra, which was developed, I suppose, probably started in the 30s, went up through the 40s. We got it in the 50s and began implementing it real heavy in the, I suppose, I'm guessing, based on everything that I've heard, just kind of swirling around the blender, that it began to be implemented in the, I don't know, early to mid-50s, and then they ramped it up in the 60s, and then they really got rolling in the 70s and the 80s, and it's continued unabated. How many people do we guess might be conscripted into the MKUltra program? I mean, for a lot of people, the very existence of such a thing... I
don't think there's any way to tell how many people are involved. And mind control and how to control the masses has been throughout mankind. I mean, we have examples of it. In America, what created the problems that we have today is pretty much after World War II, we got all of the Nazi scientists who were doing all of these awful experiments in the concentration camps and brought them to America and helped them set up shop. In fact, 2 of those Nazi scientists are actually what has given us the whole NASA program. And so we brought all of those over, and now come to find out, the FBI has told Americans, even though it's been quiet, that Hitler did not commit suicide in the bunker like we were always told. Hitler and Eva Braun were put in a submarine and taken to Argentina by us, where they lived to the ripe old age and death. So they suffered absolutely no consequences. And it was because the United States helped all of those scientists and Adolf Hitler get away, even though we have the audacity to call ourselves the good guys. The only reason we know this, however, is because of Putin. Because Russia actually was sent Hitler's body after World War II. The body that was in the bunker, Russia got. And just like America, just like the rest of the world, Russia has DNA profiling now. And come to find out, not only is the body they have not Hitler, it's not even male. And neither corpse that they were given matches Hitler or Eva Braun. And so we helped them get to Argentina. So now we have this huge problem with all of this secret experimentation as far as MK Ultra, and it's not over yet. A woman by the name of, I believe her name is Sarah Kinshaw. She was a New York Times reporter. She was just murdered because she was looking into the MK Ultra stuff today. It just happened in the last, I think, year and a half that she was found strangled to death in her apartment, and she was investigating MK Ultra. And so in America right now, we have this huge race thing. And the media is feeding, everyone hates each other because of our color. Well, I have a different theory to that. And that is that it is complete and utter BS. And the reason why I say that is because I have not been a fan, and I'm too old, so I didn't get into the craze, but this whole Pokemon Go.
Yeah.
I kind of figure it was set up for nefarious reasons. What those nefarious reasons would be, I have no clue. But this is what I know about Pokemon Go. It got hundreds, if not thousands of people off their butts, off their couches, outside their homes, got them together with the rest of the population and gave them a goal. And the stories that I've heard from the people who have been playing Pokemon is that it has given a chance in America for Americans to realize that not only do we not have a reason to be afraid of each other, but we actually like each other. We actually like engaging with each other. The thought might scare us, and actually, everything that leads up to the engaging might scare us. But if Pokemon Go showed anything, it showed that if given a common goal, mankind really likes each other. They get along. Yes, there were some issues. There's always going to be some issues because there's always going to be some idiot out there who does something. But as a whole, for the most part, Pokemon Go showed us that we don't have a reason to be afraid of each other. We actually like each other. We just don't know each other because they've isolated us. We sit on our computers all day and then think we know the people around us, and you don't. There's a difference between interacting with people in real life and interacting with them on the computer. And so I think that we're at a time of miracles, and I've already started to see miracles. This Pokemon Go, I was really upset. But after I watched it for a while and talked to the people who were doing it, Pokemon Go was actually a miracle all in and of itself. It may have been set up for bad reasons, but it didn't stay that way. And I personally believe that we are in a time of miracles, and all of the bad stuff is being instrumented by heaven. You just need to choose to see it. It's there. Trust me, it's there. Heaven is involved. Look at our politicians now. Look at how they've hidden everything in the past, and now they can't hide anything. And we are watching this thinking, oh my God, everything is completely out of control, not realizing it's always been out of control. We're just getting to see it now. You know, it's so out of control that Hillary Clinton is killing how many people? I mean, left and right, they beat up Bernie Sanders. You know, obviously, someone who's in control doesn't have to resort to those kind of...
Yeah, they beat up Ray McGovern, the CIA officer.
Everybody, they're, you know... What does Hillary Clinton think she's going to be? The mafia? That's really going to go? And go ahead, you know... go ahead and take away Americans' guns. Because from what I know about Americans is they've been dumbed down and they're loaded to the teeth. So
yeah, and there's always that black market thing.
See how it works for you.
Yeah, you're right on the money there.
I think the solution is, at this point in time, bring gun education into the schools and teach them all how to shoot at an early age. Tell them everything there is to know about responsibility and how a gun works. It's interesting how a gunman walking into a place doesn't feel as comfortable when he knows everybody's armed. And unfortunately, that's, you know, because if we give away our guns, who's going to have them? The government? You actually really trust the government to be the only one who has guns? Well,
they're smashing them up down in Venezuela now. There's a beautiful socialistic experiment that went straight down the toilet, you know, on one swirl. Yeah, it's stupid.
The thing about it is it's all about money.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't make any difference what we could. You know, we're not capitalist in this country. We're greedy. And it's not even greedy. It's the elite. You know, they have trillions upon trillions. They have enough money stored away in their bank accounts to fix the world 5 times over. But they'd rather hoard their little coins.
You know, I mentioned it to somebody else, but I think it went past them. This $400 million that just got paid to Iran, Ahmadinejad said he wanted more cash, but that popped up on the scope last week and then dropped back off again. So maybe changed his mind. $400 million. We have 350 million people in the country easily. Say, we could have each gotten a check for $1 million. Would that have been some quantitative easing or what?
Yeah.
Yeah, it would. He could have given everybody in the country $1 million and had 50 million left over.
Well, instead of that, why don't we just go take the, $98 trillion that our Pentagon has lost? 48. Donald Rumsfeld was the one who came out and said that the Pentagon had lost $98 trillion 2 days before the World Trade Center. And now they're coming out and saying another, $48 trillion is missing? I'd like to know where that is.
I don't know where. I haven't heard the numbers that high. I thought it was a few billions. I didn't know it was in the trillions.
No, it's trillions.
I thought it was like
I don't know exactly what the number is.
Yeah, it's like $3 trillion something. It's insane, dude. How do you lose that much cash exactly?
That's, exactly.
It's enough to fill the Superdome.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's literally.
And that money pumped into the economies could save all of them. But they'd rather keep them down because the people who are doing it are Luciferian. And they want a world set up for demonic takeover. And so that's why it doesn't make any sense. It does if you look at it that way.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and this whole ritual, this MK Ultra and all of that, it's everywhere. But nobody ever listens. I mean, Corey Feldman, Elijah Wood, everybody in Hollywood knows how prevalent this whole MK Ultra stuff is. And yet we're still arguing whether it's a conspiracy theory or not, and they keep us so dumbed down, and they have the money to fix things.
Man, I'm not sure that it's they who keep us. I mean, they're dumbing people down in the schools, and they're dumbing people down with the mainstream news media, and they're dumbing people down with all these stories they put out there, just like this thing. And I was, if what you're saying is accurate, then this thing about all this after-school devil parties or whatever, that being false, it's like, I think it's just, I think we're allowing ourselves to dumb down rather than them doing it. How can they dumb us down if we go, that doesn't even make any sense,
They haven't done anything we've chosen.
Yeah, well, nothing's been done to us that we didn't do to ourselves.
Exactly.
That's really how I feel about it,
They provided entertainment. They provided the push. But when it comes down to it, we all decide. We all choose. And, they really don't have any power. The only reason they have power is because the people refuse to accept theirs, accept the responsibility for our power. Because there's way more of us than there is of them. It's we're doing it. They aren't doing anything. They're instrumental. They push it. But let me tell you, in dealing with Doug Mesner and all of these CIA people and all of these people that I've had to deal with in the past, and I've gone through hell. They've already broken into my house where I live now. I've had to call the police who are very aware of what's going on. These people are bullies, and they have a lot of resources. They do. But by and large, as surprised as I was to discover this, they are all dumber than a box of rocks. And I think that is giving a disservice to that box of rocks. They are about as dumb as all get out, and they bully so that everyone thinks they're powerful. But when it comes down to it, at least the stuff that I've had to deal with, they're not smart. And really what comes down to it is that the American population, we all just need to get off of our butts and realize it's going to take all of us getting involved. And all of this needs to change. We all need to be involved with it. Not just with the child trafficking and the child prostitution, but with all of it. People will, this whole satanic after school thing went all over the internet, the internet. But I don't see anything. I don't see the outrage that people are having that your kindergartners are being taught how to masturbate in kindergarten, and that your fourth graders are learning how to have anal sex in fourth grade, which I wasn't even really thinking about sex in fourth grade.
No, neither was I.
And so where's the outrage? It seems a bit misplaced to me. And so it's not, they aren't the issue. They aren't the problem. We are the problem. We aren't doing anything to stop. And I'm sorry, but obviously voting is not going to work. If this election has showed the American public anything, it's how corrupt our political system is. Mm-hmm. What possible difference does my vote make? What argument could you give me that would even prove to me my vote would even be counted? It obviously it won't unless it's for who they want. And so the American population, we all need to wise up, And as far as the Middle East and all of that, you can say whatever you want about terrorists, but when it comes down to it, you come over to America, you bomb all of our communities, you wipe out our neighbors, you wipe out our kids,
blow up a few wedding parties, stuff like that.
What?
Blow up a few wedding parties, stuff like that.
You come do that to America, and then you compare what America's like 3 years later in comparison to the Muslim world. Because, yes, what they're doing is atrocious. It is. I'm not saying that it's not. But if we were in the same position, I have a feeling we'd make that look like a walk in the park.
Mm-hmm. I suspect a lot of people would say, yeah, I'm a terrorist, or it's nice to meet you. Yeah, I'm a terrorist. I hate those guys. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, boy. Well, I'll tell you, man.
I've been kind of all over the place, but thank you for...
No, you really haven't, man. What you've done is you've covered many, many facets of a huge problem. And it's a huge problem that has affected... this is just me spouting off here, but this is a problem that very few people knew about, but a whole lot of people, a great big lot of people, have actually experienced the blowback from. They didn't even know what was happening to them. But you know what? I said this on what I declared to be National Hangover Day. That would be the 22nd of December, 2012. And that is, people were hoping that when that Mayan calendar ended, wouldn't it be great if this was the magic bullet that killed whatever it is this thing is that's been messing with everybody for all of these years, decades, centuries even.
Actually, with the Luciferians, it was the end of the Mayan calendar that the real takeover was to take over.
Yeah, but you know what, man? You know what? They missed their guess on this because evil is stupid. Evil doesn't create anything. Evil distorts or perverts or twists something that's already been created. It doesn't create anything. Evil is evil. And the thing, they're getting the blowback now because the absolute infantile / evil stupidity of their entire agenda is falling down right in front of them for everybody to see. And they're going to fight, and they're going to claw and scratch and bite just like any rat drowning in a toilet does. But it's not going to change the outcome at all, because in the end, God wins. Period.
Already has. Heaven has already won.
It's a done deal.
It's already over. It's already won, and they've lost. Terribly lost. Sometime we'll get into a conversation, and I will talk to you about my spiritual journey, because there was a lot involved. Growing up to be the Antichrist, there's a law of physics that says every action has an opposite and equal reaction, and that's been true as far as this situation goes. I wasn't the Antichrist, but I didn't turn out to be some nobody either. I mean, they trained me and gave me all the tools and the knowledge on how to completely screw them. That was all of my training. They just never figured I would ever do it, or I could do it.
Yeah, well, I can relate to that one, brother.
I tell them all the time. And that stuff, they taught the wrong person their shit. I'm sorry, but they did. They taught the wrong person their stuff.
Yeah. We've heard that.
Like they taught me, you better hope you have complete control over them and they don't ever get out of your hand. Because if they do, they can seriously put a world of hurt on you.
Yeah.
I don't like Luciferians. I don't like anybody who stands against heaven. I just don't. And that's a personal choice. And if people don't like it, tough.
Well, it's stupid. And I'm sorry, but if it makes me an elitist to say that I like clever people as opposed to dumbasses, well, guilty, okay?
Exactly.
Just how it is. Hey, I have really enjoyed our conversation. How can we get your book? It's in guest media, but some people are listening and not watching, and they won't,
If you want to go to Rabbit Hole, if you want to go to Amazon, it's on Amazon. Rabbit Hole, a satanic ritual abuse survivor story. You can just type in the title Rabbit Hole, or you can type in my name, David Shurter. That's SHUR, T as in Tom, ER. Or again, you can also go to davidshurter.com and read the extended version for free. And that's in the pages above. And it's the extended version of Rabbit Hole Confessions of an Antichrist. And that basically just details everything. And so you can get it. And I also have a lot of YouTube videos out there. So, A Walking Tour Through Pedophile Omaha, which explains Franklin. I have a thing on Hummel Park. A professional film documentary guy just did a documentary for me called David's Story. That's on there. And so the childhood ritual abuse of David Shurter. And so there's a lot of stuff to look out there. My blog is getting ready to be revamped here as soon as I get a chance to do it. It's not very accessible. And so I want to revamp it so that all of the articles are easily found. And so that'll be happening within the next month or so. That's basically my information. And again, for those of you who, it's not anywhere near about me, but for those of you who have trauma and would really like to know what to learn about it and what it does and how it works and how to overcome it, igdid.org. the Seattle Trauma and Dissociation Conference.
IGDID?
Right. It stands for Ivory Garden. DID is Dissociative Identity Disorder.
Okay, and that's .com or org?
.org.
Org, okay. Hey, Ghost, make
For
sure
those
that's
of you who are
Ghost Media,
interested,
okay.
if you go to the .com, you can actually find the website of Ivory Garden, and that might be of interest of you too. But it doesn't have anything really to do with the conference.
Forgive me if I sound a little flippant when I say, you know, we've some of us have had some. When you come back and we talk about the spiritual journey, that'll be very interesting, and I want to do that because many of us have had some pretty bumpy rides here on our little life flight. But I'll tell you this. It wasn't boring. And
no.
It was not boring. And you know what? I'll take this to just grinding out a boring life anytime where you go.
The Chinese actually have a curse
Yeah?
when you have interest in life. And I don't look at it as much of a curse. It keeps me on my toes, and the points where I have been the lowest, I have learned the most about myself.
It's the way it always is, man.
Yeah.
That's the way it always is here in our little time bubble known as life on planet Earth. Hey, God bless. We'll talk again soon, all right, David Shurter?
Thank you. And I'm available. Anytime you want to talk, just give me a ring. So.
You bet I will. All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care out there.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Wow, we got a heavy dose of MK Ultra this week, didn't we? And I've got another heavy dose of something for you. It's heavy. It's like, what we used to think of as Jupiter-grade heavy, really dense, pithy, substantive. You know, this new website we've been talking about for a while? Well, it's coming. So I'm going to give you a heads up now, and I'll also mention it tomorrow, and Saturday night on Arc Midnight, which you can hear at klif.com. Stream it over just about any streaming device you have, or streaming platform you may have access to. That's the best way to put it. This website is really cool. I mean, I very rarely have, in fact, I can't remember getting excited over a website, ever. But I am excited about this one. You're going to love it. And we're going to do it when? We're going to do it Sunday night, right? When things are the quietest, at least theoretically. So it should be up and running, by midday on Monday, yeah? Monday morning it'll be up and running. All right. Fabulous. You're going to like this. Oof. It's been a long time coming. We got some bright people on there. You know, we did a, how can I say this? We changed everything, including some technicians and others. And to their credit, when they say, look, we've reached the limit of our expertise, it's like, okay, thank you. Handshakes all around. See you later. Okay. Okay, we need to get the other A team. So we thank everybody that got us, helped get us to where we are now. And there's a new crew in here now that's going to, this is like stage 2. Boom, like the rocket going off. First stage, jettison. Second stage is burning. We're headed ever upward. And our hats are off to you. And from deep within our hearts, our thanks go to you for making this whole thing possible, because you did. You made this possible. Your membership and your support of Caravan to Midnight has just been, can I use the word astounding? It has been. There's so many excellent people out there. You know, every once in a while you get a grump one there going, where's the new website? It's like, well, it's coming. Sunday night, it'll be there. I wish I could be there with you, pal, so I could watch you shut the bleep up. But it's okay. I say that in a brotherly way to you. You will not be disappointed. And, gosh, it's so easy to navigate. It looks good. It's easy to read. Not everybody. You know, I got these things on. You know why? Too many screens. I used to just carry too many screens, and they were all on in my head. But now I've actually got them in like right there in my actual physical reality. So you're going to love it. And remember, it's going to happen Sunday night. All right. Until we meet again, how about tomorrow? Exercise caution in your daily affairs. Eyes up always. Make ready for what's to come. Okay? Okay. Over and out for now. Be seeing you.